Hey there, Titans. In this video, we'll talk about global variables in Titan Web. First thing, what is a variable? So variables in Titan Web are like hidden inputs where you can store data that's not visible to the user. And you can run conditions on this data or use this data to push to Salesforce and have logic on it, concatenate other fields, so on and so forth. So what are global variables? So global variables, just as we explained in the previous videos, is a variable where it will be available across the whole project. So if we have multiple pages in the project, we'll be able to access these variables from every single page. It's very important to choose the correct variable for your use case, because if you have a page specific variables where you want to run condition on that variable and affect specific elements on a certain page, it should be placed as a page variable. So any variable you could do as a global, you can do in page variable as well. All right, so let's take a look at where we can set these variables up. So if we head over to our project settings, we go to tools, and then we can see our custom variables menu. So here we see that we have system variables and static variables. System variables are for anything that we can get from Titan, from the system of Titan Web. So anything that we know of the user, we can pass along, like the language of the browser itself, the OS. You could do stuff like today. You can get the current month, current year, a bunch of stuff that you can get by default as a system variable. One thing to note, if you want a variable to assign values to, system variable you cannot assign any data to a system variable. Whatever you choose here, this is what the variable will hold. You cannot set a value to it from anywhere. All right, if we want to have a variable where we can store data to, we want to have it as a static variable. And normally we want to name it, and you can name it whatever you like. And just notice you cannot use spaces in the names of the variables. If you want to separate the characters, you can do an underscore, and that's great. So this variable can now be populated from anywhere in the project. Just notice that it's a global variable, so you can set it from any page, just since it's accessible everywhere, and you can pull the data from any page on your project as well. Formula fields, we're going to do a whole video about formula fields in details, but just in short, you can have a numeric field where you can concatenate a bunch of number fields, and then you could run any math operation on them. So hypothetically, if account ID was, I don't have any elements on the screen, so I can't see much here, we can add and see, but I would be able to run any math operation on it, divide it, multiply it, so on and so forth. And you can add as many fields as you like, and also do like static calculations as well. Like if I wanted to do this, it will run the calculation, and this is the value that it will hold. We can afterwards spit it out to another variable. Let's say if we want to present it to a text element or a number element, obviously in the number variable, then we can spit it out to any field we like or any element we like. Same goes for the string variable. Just in this instance, it will concatenate strings. You can add strings together, add static string to it, and then spit it out to an element or to another variable. JS variables is a combination of the two, kind of, where you can write your own JavaScript. You can map anything you like from here, and you can manipulate that data in JavaScript, and then return whatever value you like, just to make sure your JavaScript is valid. And then you can also map it to an element either on the screen, or spit it out to a different variable, or access it directly from Salesforce push or get, or use it in conditions, wherever you like. We can also organize our variables in a folder. So if we want to add a folder, then we can put variables in a certain folder, just for in terms of organizing if you have a lot of variables. All right, so let me give you a great example of global variable when you want to use a global variable. So let me just clean up my variables here, and let's say we want to add SmartV is a great example to a global variable. So let's set this up real quick, and just so you understand the concept of global variables. So let's say I want to set up a smart V on the contact object, and I'll select the value, contact ID, and I'll select an email field, and that's great. I'm not gonna add any conditions, and I'll turn off two-factor authentication and generate the smart V login. Let me just add an element to the first page here, just so we know this is our first page. And let's say I want to run, let's do a table, and let's say I want to run a get all the opportunities that this contact has. So I'll say in my condition, I'll say, let's say opportunity ID, contact ID on the opportunity equals to my global variable smart V. Smart V is by default a global variable because whenever we use a smart V and we're authenticating a user, it doesn't matter. Right now it's a contact. The smart V will hold a contact ID, but it could be an account or a custom object. Anything you define your smart V on, it will be a global variable, and we can access it from any page in our project. Let me just add one field over here. Let's just say the name of the opportunity. That's great. Now, if I will choose to add another page, and in this one I'll add another table, and again this is just an example because with the table I can show you the get immediately, and we will say, for instance, I want to get all the cases where the contact ID on the case equals, again, and now we're on a different page, and we can still access the smart V, and it will be populated across the whole project. That's a very good example of when to use global variables, is when you need your variable to be shared across the whole page. If the variable is specific to a single page, you want to use page variable. All right, so let's do another quick demonstration just to make sure we have this concept nailed down, because this is pretty important. We're on page 2, and let me go ahead and add a global variable, and I'll say global var. Okay, so whenever we're on page 2, let's put in a title, and we'll say, and again I could have many more pages than this, but just for this demonstration it will suffice. And I'll click the button, and what I will do with this button, and I'll say whenever I click it, I want you to affect a global variable, and I can affect it directly from here, and it will be affected whenever I navigate away from the page. It will have that value. And what I will do here, I'll do set value, and I'll say set from page 2. Okay, so right now whenever I'll click the button, and again you can set the value from a condition, you can map it from Salesforce, and obviously it makes a lot more sense when you map it from Salesforce. So usually when working with global variables, or you map it from the URL, but this is just a demonstration just to understand the concept of global variable. Okay, so I'll set it from page 2, and then let's say whenever I go to page 1, and we do not need this table anymore, and let's say let's do this. I'll do let's add a button, and whenever I click the button, what we want to happen here is just to show a message or show a toast, and let's show the value of the global variable. Okay, and just so we have easy navigation, I'll include the header so we can move back from page 1 to page 2 real quick, and that's great. One more thing, whenever you're working with variables, you want to turn on debug mode, so whenever you preview the project you could see everything that's happening to your variables. So for instance, if I'll click the debug now, I see global var is empty. And let's show a toast, and we see that there is nothing there. So if we navigate to page 2, and I'll click the button, I see that my global variable was set. And if we navigate back and click the button, now we have a value on the global variable. So as we can see, we can set it from any page and we can access it from any page, and that's really great. One thing to notice here, that if you want to run a condition based off of a global variable change, is to do it from the tools pane. So if I'll head back to our custom variables pane, I'll take a look at conditions, and from here you can write a condition on our global variable. So let's say if I'll write a simple condition saying if global variable is not empty, then, and typically you want to make sure that it was changed. So, and I'll do is changed, then I would like to do something. In this instance it's not going to change, so I'll keep it like this. And now we could just say, you want to be careful with the affected elements here, because you never know where and which page you will be when that action takes place. So an example, something I wouldn't do is, let's say if I had like a table that I wanted to refresh or to take an action onto an element, affect an element on a specific page, I wouldn't run it from a global variable because I do not know where that user will be. But if you want to take actions that can happen to any page, for instance show message, or other actions you want to run in the background, so on and so forth, that are not element specific and bound to a page, you can run it safely from a global variable. So what I will do here is just show a message, and I'll show a message again with the global variable. Okay, so now what will happen is whenever I navigate to page 2 and I'll click the button, I'll get that message because there's a condition sitting on the variable, and it will show me the message. And now it didn't pop up because it already has a value, so it's not going to pop up again. But first time I set it, it will run, and if it will get a different value and it was changed, then it will show the message again. And this is how it's done.